Well, that audio lined up perfectly, don't you think, guys? It just kind of transitioned.
Well done.
Hey, we're on time for
Totally.
once. This is amazing. Marcus was actually chatting with me as we were getting ready to go live, and is this the first time we were actually on time?
Nailed it. Think so.
I think so. I think we're getting this down a little bit more. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Stoneridge Confab. I, Scott Frappier, along with Marcus and Adam, are going to be your hosts today. And it's been a couple of weeks since we've been on stream. It's been almost 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Is that right?
Yep, I think so. It's almost a month.
Really?
Yep.
Is that Leah that's actually saying way to start a new year? I know, it's awesome, right? We're ready to go. We're having fun. Hopefully in chat, let me know how your holiday went, your holiday season. I was super busy with the kids running around, going back to my hometown in Annandale, Minnesota. It is a wonderful, balmy -4 right now as well. Marcus is joining us from where today?
Tacoma, Washington today.
How's the weather there?
Oh, I think might be 40 right now. We had a lot of wind yesterday, a lot of snow. Snow's all melted now. It's a little nicer than I think you've got right now.
Sabrina, it's negative 22 in Barnesville. It was negative 12 this
Oof.
morning for us. So, at least for me. Adam, and you're at the office, right, at this point in good old
I
St.
am.
Louis Park?
Yep. Yeah, 37. How about that?
37 degrees. You said there's green grass there as well?
There is. I would move my camera and show it to you, but I don't know that I'm going to get everything lined up again.
Yeah, yeah. It's always fun, right, to go through
Yeah.
that. So awesome. Well, today, what we're doing is a little bit different. We're going to go through and what is that without wind chill?
Yeah.
Sabrina, thank you. That would be a little bit chilly. Negative 22. Yeah, I could see that. So today, what we're planning to do is to kind of go through some new functionality that's been introduced into Dynamics 365, and this is a topic that we were. I don't know, not sold on, but we had somebody come in and show us some of the capabilities of it. And we thought that we could do it a little bit better, I think, in some ways, to be able to communicate what the value is for this. More specifically, what we're looking at today is a functionality called Customer Insights, which is one of the newer additions to Dynamics 365. Marcus, I know that you saw it, and you had a client that you were at that was asking, why don't I have like all my job detail in one area? And you
Right.
talked to me offline at one point saying, hey, this software that we're looking at today could potentially do that. Did you want to give a little background on how you stumbled upon this as well?
Sure. Yeah. Working with a client, I think it's a question we get often. It probably was articulated a little better than what most people do. But the gentleman, just asked the question. He said, "Why, with all this technology that I have, that I own, that Microsoft's developing, why can't I have one page on the web that allows me to see everything and anything that I would want to know about my customer? Everything that's happening, their web interactions, their customer service interactions, if they've got open service tags, jobs, orders, what have they purchased, how much money have we made on it? That's sort of everything he wanted to see in one place. And yeah, so Scott and I, you and I had a call about that and said, customer insights potentially could actually answer that question.
Well,
So that's where we started to dig.
wait though. Didn't you go into Business Central and create an amazing custom form that did all this stuff?
I did. There's few people that would appreciate the amount of effort it took to put that in there. Yes, yeah, I did create a page that would consolidate Business Central data in one place. It wasn't quite exactly what he was looking for, but it was a cool page anyway.
It got some of the points across with it, right?
Right.
So
Yep.
yeah, no, that's a big thing that I've noticed as well, is that there's a lot of data that you're getting, and we use Power BI, and we've talked about the common data service, and we've talked about the common data model and all that type of stuff, but there's not like a really nice user interface to go through and then centralize these data sources to report off of it. And I think that's what the customer insights capability really is intending to be, right? It's not
So,
that you
yep.
go into and create a new Power BI form or anything else like that. You basically have an area that you can link data from the common data service, or even from other data sources that aren't yet in the common data service, and then expose those as part of kind of those measurements and those analytics, because it's almost like a simplified OLAP cube, right? I mean, is the
Yep.
way I looked at it.
Yep. Yep.
Measures.
That's actually a really good. That's a good analogy there.
Yeah, and if OLAP is BI database, I guess, for people that are just like Scott, sometimes they use acronyms that nobody knows except for me. One thing I wanted to mention too before we start digging into this, though, too, Sabrina let me know that, remember, we've got our Stoneridge Connect occurring on April 15th to 16th, and it's called Defining Your Digital Transformation. And what we're looking at doing, and I'm just reading this off to the side here, is that we're looking at doing sessions on Dynamics software. So this is across all the Dynamics platform, CE, Business Central, finance and supply chain management as well. And then what we're also covering are topics like machine learning, AI, and the digital transformation that our industry is really going through as well. So if you've just joined and you haven't registered yet, Sabrina just mentioned it in chat as well. Please please register. Come talk with us. We'll be there having a great time. It's a very informal event. It's a lot of great information that basically people love to learn. It's pretty cheap comparably as well.
Super cheap.
I mean, if you go to
Super cheap.
like Summit is like super expensive, and I would say that the content that we give is as good, if not better, because you get to talk to the people as well, which is great.
I'm really excited for that event. It's going to be a heck of a lot of fun,
I'm
and we've got a lot of registrants already. A lot of our, get to kind of hang out with our current customers and some people that are looking our way. And really, the content and the structure and the organization and the value that you get from, again, this is a really, really low ceiling in terms of, how much it's going to cost, and the value you're going to get out of this event is going to be pretty insane.
Sabrina, special confab price of $29.99. Use promo code. Yeah, what is that?
Ultra early.
Ultra early. Cut off a little bit in chat here. Ultra early.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Ultra early, one string.
So yeah, like I said, I'd recommend it. It's a great event, and like I said, there's a lot of people. Our team is going to be there. They will talk to you in more detail. It's free services. I mean, look at it almost like that. Or I'm sorry, it's $29 in free services. So like I said, it's definitely worth it. So thank you, Sabrina. Appreciate you being able to bring more information there as well. And then don't forget, we've got other people. Forest Runner will be there as well. So. I don't know if that's another question I've got to ask people internally at some point here. Should I use their real names on stream? So I'll debate on that later. Anyways, let's dive in, guys, right? So what we want to do today is just go through some basics here to start. So, maybe you want to test drive this, right? And so us as pre-sales architects, what we're going to do today on stream is we're going to try that. We're going to go through some of the setup of this so that you could understand how to actually go through and use the customer insight functionality, meaning we've got a couple of demo environments that we set up. We showed that on the last stream, or one of the older streams, where we had how to create a common data service environment, right? A trial environment. And so what you can do with that, I'm going to go ahead and flip over here just really quickly into our screen share so we can go through this. On the screen here, I've just got Chrome open with it. Remember, if you go to trials.dynamics.com, you can't see it as good. I'm going to move this over just a little bit so we can see while our beautiful faces are up so you guys can watch us.
Maybe a little redundant, but anybody can create these trials.
Yeah.
I think people don't realize that Microsoft does provide an avenue for people to try all of the software out for free.
Yeah, so create an environment. Then you got a common data service environment. You can play around with CRM or CE and experiment with it and see what you want, if you like it. Field service. I mean, these are all the different applications, right, that are out there that you can then hook up as part of this. Now, once you have that hooked up, what you can also do is you can type in Dynamics Customer Insights as an example. And then from here in the Customer Insights page, if I log into it really quickly here, you can click on the Get Started, I think it is, right, Marcus?
Yep.
And then in here, of course, I don't like giving my personal information to any company.
Hit the start a free trial right in the middle.
Exactly, right there, right?
Yep.
So if you want to sign up for a free trial, you sign that up as part of that process. I've already done this, so we have a trial environment already set up. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take my link and then log in. But then you'll get a link, and basically you'll log into your trial environment. I'm going to do that as we're on the screen real quick here. Luckily,
I think there's some time limits on the trial. Is it 60 days or 90 days or something like that?
Yeah, it's like 30 to 60 days or something like that, right, as part of it?
Just so people know that it does disappear.
Yeah, don't consider it production, right? I mean, that'd be the big thing with it. So what we're going to do is we're going to mimic like the creation of a new environment with this for customer insights. We kind of described it at a very high level already on what the intent is here. More specifically, we're trying to get data into this environment using the common data service, using finance and supply chain management, or any other data source as well, right? And I think in this demonstration, we're going to show how to do it with number one, Business Central. So if you want to use Business Central to import data into here, you can do that. Finance and operations or finance and supply chain management, we can do that as well. And then also with the Common Data Service, because Common Data Service is going to be CE in those trial environments that you generally spin up. So to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to go into our environments here. I'm going to do the infamous delete. Hopefully this works out fine. And I'm going to copy. Please type it in so you don't delete it. Delete it, and then we're going to create a new environment. So we'll call this Stoneridge Confab testing. And we're going to do this in a North America environment, and it's a trial instance that we're going to create with it, and we're going to let this run in the background for a couple seconds here as it creates it. So some of these steps that we're going to go through, we're going to flip back and forth between. They have a preset demo environment that has data already loaded into it, which is great for you to get some examples of what can this turn into. But really, you can pretty much do any type of graph, chart, measure, and you can even hook this up into, if I remember correctly, the machine learning models as well for like churn scores and things of that nature. And that uses the Azure ML Studio. Is that correct? I believe so, right,
Yep.
Marcus? Yeah.
Yeah. Sky's the limit at that point.
Yeah, and so if you want to have some other inputs or outputs that you drive off of that, you can get to that information. And so the first screen that we see here, then, this is the demo environment. So in your environments, when you actually create this, you're going to have two of them. The one that you named it when you went through the sign-up process, and also then the demo environment. And the demo environment, I think, gives a really good kind of background in terms of, what can you do with this? Meaning insights, we're going through and defining what those churn scores are on this particular dashboard. We can define the different categories and brands that we're interacting with as well here. But if I click on customers, for example, I can see kind of a consolidated customer perspective here. And the intent is really to take these multiple data sources that you may have in your organization. So maybe you have data in the Common Data Service, but maybe you have a web-based e-commerce store that's not integrated with the actual Common Data Service or integrated into your ERP system, and you want to bring that information together. You can do that, and we're going to show some of that capability as well inside of here. Marcus, did you go through the setup of this as well in terms of just linking customers and doing that off of the data?
Yeah, I did. So yeah, you can pull data sources, as you mentioned. You can transform the data in between. You can join to other tables. You can union data sets together. So if you've got, again, other data sources of customer records, for example, you can put all of them together in one place.
Okay. So let's take a look real quick here. I'm going to log into my Business Central environment real quick here too. So we've got that open. And if I check that out, there's Business Central. And let's go into where you connect Business Central. So let's say you're on stream and you're a Business Central person. Great. We've got a way to do this for you. So what you'll do is you'll go to your web services, and on your web service list here, this link right here, this OData v4 URL, is really important. This is how you grab data out of Business Central and how you can import it into customer insights. So if you want to be able to take, for example, some of your customer information, you could use the customer web service that's natively in here, or if you wanted to, you could also create a quick extension then to get that information as well. And I just wanted to highlight this because this is what I did, because I wanted to have like the address and extended information fields available inside of here as well. And so what I did is I just quickly created a extension. You just go, what is it, AL go, right, to create it. Create the customer list as the example here, is what I would say with it for this particular release. You can then go ahead and say I'm connecting to my cloud sandbox as part of this. It logs in and downloads all the information that it needs to do that. And what you can do, if you install some of the different, there's extensions that you can install, but basically what you can do is you can say I want a new AL file, I want a page, and I want that page to be my customer list as an example, looking at the customer table. And then from there, after you've downloaded everything, you can basically go ahead and then deploy that. So if you haven't done an extension before, this is a great way to start, because really what you're doing is you're creating a page that you then consume into customer insights. You don't have to do that. Like I said, it's like, for example, chart of accounts. There's a bunch of strings that are already in here, and customer is one of them as well as the pages that are in here.
Yeah, and
That's what
you
you
can use
use,
this
Marcus,
page
right?
yeah, that's exactly what I did. I did not create an extension to pull data in, but if a particular object isn't exposed here, you can actually expose it. So I can't think of one offhand that's not there that you would need, but
Maybe it'd be
if
like,
it wasn't, you can expose another page.
yeah, you could go in here and
Yeah.
say customer ledger entries would be maybe one, right? So, or
Yeah,
currencies.
or currencies.
Yeah, you
Currencies,
could
perfect.
select
Now,
currencies.
Scott, we're gonna the next step here is we're gonna step through the exhilarating world of JSON payloads, OData structure, and object-oriented coding in Visual Studio, right?
Not to that degree.
all right.
Come on. I don't know how many devs are on here. I'm sure they'd love to see that, but I'm scared for the other users. I'm
But
scared for myself.
For people that, Business Central users that have never created an extension, Scott just did it. I mean, that's really how straightforward and simple it is.
Yeah, and there's tons of documentation on it as well. And the
Yes.
reason I wanted to highlight that is that, what you're going to do is the barrier with most of these technologies is that you don't have the field that you need, right? And so it exists. You go to the customer card and you see the address there. But when you go to the customer list, so if I go to customers, for example, and click on it, and then you come in here and you're like, oh, I need the address field on here as well, so I'm going to hide that. And then you go and you personalize this and you try to add that field, and you're like, okay, I'm going to add the address. It's like, well, it's not on here, right? And so immediately hands up, stop, and that's kind of cool. Hands are kind of cut off. So, but you stop and you don't move forward with it. Well, there's technologies, extensions are available for anyone to extend as part of that. Yes, I've got you, Bill Spock. Absolutely. So let's keep going here. So the next step here obviously is let's go through and take a look at how we actually get this data into our environment. So here's our customer insights environment, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my data, and look at that, I've got data sources I can define with it. And what's really cool about this is if I want to look at my customers, for example, inside of here, it tells you step by step what you need to do to go through to start getting this to start working. So I can say my data sources, I need to add a new data source, and I want to import data from a file, a database, or a service as part of it. McCoy Polly, thank you for the subscription or follow. Hopefully we give you some great information as well as we go through this. So import data, I'm going to go ahead and click on next, and what we're going to do is we're going to call this Business Central Customer Insights, right? So things to note here, you can't add underscores. Just come on, guys. You can't have spaces. You can only use letters and numbers.
So you can't have 7 ampersands.
Definitely not. It does not work. All right, let's keep moving.
It is a little weird.
Yeah.
Clearly, I'm here
Some
today
of the
for the comic
limitations.
relief.
Hey, it was kind of funny, I thought. So, all right. Anyways, hello. All right, so let's go ahead and click on next here and see what we can add. So, what I'm going to do here is click on next, and what we should get then is a list of different data sources that we can use to get the data into Customer Insights. And so as we wait for our wonderful environment to kind of show this, one thing that you're probably going to notice right away, especially if you use this all the time in Excel, look at what we use for it. Power Query. So that means what I can do is I can connect to an Excel file. So, hopefully you're not driving your business off of Excel files, but we understand. Sometimes that is what it is. So you can link an Excel file to import that data into here. And you can also then set up in the admin section here in the system setup for it, you can actually go through and define a schedule in terms of when it will actually go through and refresh that information. Now note with an Excel file, if you want it to automatically refresh, you're going to need to install, there is an on-premise gateway that you install on a machine that should have access to that Excel file so that it can automatically schedule to import it as part of it. But if you use online services like OData, for example, well, there's not really a, if it's a cloud service that uses OData, you really don't have to have that on-premise data gateway to do that. If you have an OData, let's say you've got Nav, say even, heck, what, 2009? No, not 2009. OData was in 2013 that they introduced it with. Nav 2013 or above, you could technically use OData because OData was actually available in those versions. There might be some configuration because we're using the V4 for this, and that was introduced, Marcus, I think it was 2016 maybe? Maybe it was 2015?
I think 15.
Is it 15? Okay. So either way, you can add it. So what I want to do, though, is let's go ahead and connect.
The other thing to note, though, is I was happy to see that Microsoft didn't introduce yet another engine. So if you've used Power Query, you already know how to get data into the system.
Exactly. And the other thing, though, that's kind of a bummer, like I'll go back into this, we'll edit it. At some point, I think in the future, maybe online services, maybe we'll have it in here. Maybe. The thing to note, though, is that with Power Query, it's pretty much been generally accepted that when you integrate with Nav or any of the other data sources, usually you're going through and connecting to OData as part of that feed. That's with finance and supply chain management as well. You can do that. We're going to highlight that too, but I just don't see them having that as super critical, I guess. What do you guys think?
Well, and it's consistent with Power BI.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Power BI, don't they have a little connector for it as well?
Yeah, they do, which is interesting why that's not available here, but
yeah.
Maybe that is coming.
Well, let's show you how to do it right now, right? This is how you do it right now. We'll go to OData. We copy the web service link that was in here. So for this one, we go to web services again. We'll go to that page. This URL string that's been generated, the OData v4 feed that's here, that's what you're actually going to use to be able to get to that information. So you're going to copy this value, and then you basically paste it into the URL string here. And you can see it's at a specific company. It's got my instance information, so on and so forth. And what you'll do is you'll change it to an organizational account for your authentication. So, there may be, if you use basic, for example, you've got to use the web services keys and all that type of stuff. But with V4, we natively integrate with that token capability. So that way the OData feed can pass a token then to get logged into the online service. And when I click next to this now, we're going to see, hopefully, that we can actually go through and bring this data in. So here's my customer list that exists inside of Business Central. This is using that page that I created, and I uploaded it as an extension. And so what I can do is I can just call this my customer list as an example. Click on next to it, and then what it should do is import that query and refresh that data so that now inside of Customer Insights we have a data source related to this. Let's go through one other example too, or two other examples, because some of you on chat here, let me know if you're a CE person, or if you're a BC person, or a FSCM now is what we're going to call it. Is that right? Finance and Supply Chain Management, maybe?
It'll be different in 6 months anyway.
Hey,
so.
Yeah, probably. BC. All right, Starman. Nah, I wonder who that is, Marcus. You stack in chat. He's stacking chat. All right, let's go ahead and import again. So let's call this our SRF Customer Insights. And this one we're actually going to use a admin.powerplatform.com. Go ahead and log in here. I don't want to sign out. Try it again. We've had some interesting things today happen. That's really different. How's the audio been for you, Adam? So far, so good? No breakups?
All good.
Hey, thank you for the help, G-Delp. I think I know who that is. All right. So let's go ahead and take a look at this environment. I'm going to actually go ahead and log into here. And so the nice thing about the Common Data Service, right, is if I actually go and take a look at, this is one of the trial environments that we have. What I can do is I can just copy this string, and then in Customer Insights here, I can go to my Common Data Service. I can specify that string without any additional detail related to it. sign in. It's going to pop up that sign in, that OAuth sign in. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and hit next. And now what I should see is all my common data service tables, right? And Adam, this is more of your area, right? So these entities are the schema or the table structure that's in the background inside of CE. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah. So if you're pulling in CDS, I mean, in that paradigm shift from traditional Dynamics CRM to Dynamics 365 to Power Platform CDS, um, this is going to look and feel a little bit more like home to those that are coming from the CRM space. So you'll get your, pretty typical rundown. If you went into the back end, into the customizations or anything, and you took a look at those discrete business objects or those entities that are in the system, this should match one for one in terms of that default solution that's in the organization. So this to me is now where I'm like, yeah, all right, I get it. It's good. No over the head BC stuff for me. But it's as Scott just highlighted, very easy if you're using CDS, if you're using Dynamics 365, sales, customer service, the CDS based applications, those first party apps. This is going to be a pretty easy inroad to start pulling in entities and working with that data in that kind of local cube sense.
Yeah, and that's a really, I mean, in chat too, I'm sorry guys, we use acronyms, just, ask in chat, ask, we'll answer for sure. BC, Business Central, as David had mentioned, FSCM, FinOps, Finance and Supply Chain Management is what it is. These are all the different Dynamics 365 applications that you can really use to run your business. I'm sure we're going to be calling it D365 CI here, which is Customer Insights in the future as well. CE, Customer Engagement, right? Is that, I believe, what it's called for right now?
One thing I think that might be, and some of this is conjecture and some of this is information that's been coming or fed to us from Microsoft. Have heard in a couple of podcasts lately that a lot of what we see here, Customer Insights is sort of branded on its own, but it's not a first-party app. It's not like a
like
UI
talent.
plus data. Well, yeah, exactly. This is more of data manipulation, data configuration, setting up some of the data-based automation and some of those surfaced insights that you can glean or you can produce or you can predict that marries up with discrete business objects like accounts, contacts, customers, things like that. So this is more of an engine, and on the back end, I don't expect that this was really going to be, this is kind of part of that customer data platform that Microsoft is really pushing right now. So customer insights, machine learning, some of the AI, like AI Builder and CDS, more of the back end stuff. So probably won't be really roped into that first foot forward branding from an application perspective, sales, Business Central, customer service, finance, things like that, but is at that secondary, more back end configuration, system ownership layer.
Yeah, there's a lot of excitement over it, right? Because it's taking your data and bringing it all into one source. And when we start talking to a lot of our prospects and customers, one of them is also, like, even recently, 2 days ago, we were working with a prospect that's implemented Dynamics 365 Business Central and master data management, like setting up who is the owner of the master data in terms of whether or not it's Dynamics 365 CE or if it's Business Central, for example. The nice thing about this tool is you can kind of you can actually do a lot of matching that we're going to show here as well, where it'll join or merge these records together to give you one vision across the organization of that customer. And this is important if you haven't gotten yet to the point, and I think this is why Microsoft is excited about it, because CDS, if you think about it, it takes a little bit of effort to integrate into the common data service, especially if you don't have an application that natively does it. Whereas with this tool, you can, like Power BI, you can grab that data and then store it inside of here and then merge it, which is what Power BI doesn't do really well at this point, is it's not really a good merging engine, whereas Customer Insights has that natively inside of it to merge that data to provide that vision then. Right?
Yeah, this and like say something like data flows, the ETL capabilities that are baked into it right off the bat are going to be Even though we're looking at more technical pieces right here, they seem to be a little bit more intuitive and accessible. With, like, as Scott just mentioned, Power BI, you have to either hard code tables to run some of those joins and some of those references, or pull in multiple data sources and do a little bit more manual configuration to get what you're looking for. But this is a little bit more baked in and ready to go.
Yeah, and to talk to that, I mean, it's a perfect segue into this, right? So we have two different tables, and typically, for a data source that I want to reflect in this example is that I want the list of contacts, I want individual people that I view as customers. You may look at it as different organizations, but let's say you want to get down to a lower, more granular perspective of the people that are purchasing or interacting with that particular product that you may have. With Customer Insights and CDS, I've got contact and account, and contacts can relate to accounts. And Adam, please keep me true on all this, because this is more inside of CDS that defines that. But the point here is that managing this, what we can do as some of the options here, we can actually go ahead and combine tables. And so this is native capability. So I want to merge contact and account together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say I want the contact table as my primary table. And what I want to do is I want to join anything in the contact with the account table. So that way I can pull the fields on the account, like the organization name, which may not be on the contact. It may have a different name, the employee name, for example, or the person you're selling it to. There's a lot of different, I'm assuming Adam as well, different configurations that you can define with it. But the point here is that you can actually go through and then join that together. So if I wanted to take my parent customer ID and I want to join that based upon the account ID, what you'll see down here then as well is it will actually tell you how many rows match that criteria for that join that needs to occur. So it has 119 contacts that have a related account to them based off of this join that's occurring. So now I can pull all the information in one table. So instead of creating contact and account and then doing all this complex logic to do it, I've just set up what that merge is. And when I click on OK to it, this contact table now is actually joining together inside of one view for it. So this is probably a little more advanced, I think, than what a lot of users may want. But this is the other obstacle that a lot of customers have, is that they're like, well, I need to join the data together. I mean, it's the sales invoice, for example, may not have, we'll say, the description or search description field for some reason that's on the customer, but you've got the customer ID on a sales invoice, for example. So you want to bring that data together to show it in one table to get to that information. So you can, in Power Query, create more complex views of the data, and I can expand it out here, for example. And what I want to do is I want to get the name field in here, check mark that, click on OK. And then from here now, I'm going to have the account name, all the fields that are in the contact, plus the account name field that's on there as well. I'm going to rename it because they don't like periods in it. And then from here, if I click next and then save this, what it should do is it should now have that field accessible for me to be able to get to that information. So
one thing to throw in there. So for any of those that are listening that are coming from the CRM or the CDS world, all Scott did here really was define a relationship. So in the system, if you're really accustomed to configuration or extension via the UI, maybe you didn't come from a C# or a JavaScript world or SQL administration world where you're doing this stuff either directly in the database or at a code level, he essentially just identified and defined like a lookup, from contact to account in the system. You have your contacts and you have your parent account. So you'd have that record floating in a lookup field or attribute on that form or on that record. So, when you pull this data in, all of that comes in raw form. So we have those GUIDs. You saw those strings that were existing as that identifier. We have to tell the system that that's the relationship that we want to be able to work with when we're doing advanced querying or searching through the data at that extended level.
Yeah, imagine a VLOOKUP, right? I mean, so a lot of people know Excel, right? I just did a VLOOKUP. I mean, that's fundamentally what I did. They call it a left, what is it, left outer join as part of it. That's where you say every record that's inside of my left data set I want to display no matter what. And if it finds a match with the other table, add that to it, basically. So you could do, I mean, you do it all the time, more than likely, with a VLOOKUP inside of Excel if you use that capability. So because we're talking with data, obviously it's important. You can do inner joins, which then make it so that if it doesn't exist here, don't show this record. So that way you've got, you know, only records that have organization names. So it's, like I said, it's at least easy for you to go through and do that setup. And there are more advanced options there too. You can do like fuzzy lookups or fuzzy logic, where maybe you look at the organization name and that's where it tries to join it, as opposed to specifying an ID field. Obviously, a ID field is usually better, and if you're in an environment that relates it somehow, all you got to do is ask your partner, you know, how do I link these? How do I know what contacts are related to an account? And they should be able to hopefully define for you what that is. And I don't know, Adam, is there a data dictionary by chance for CE that you can get to pretty easily?
A data dictionary.
Like a definition of what tables are related to what, or what fields are related to?
Yeah, I mean, we've got like third-party tooling. I'm actually right now on my desktop. I mean, you know, entity relationship diagram creator. Usually when I'm trying to get the skinny on discrete relationships, if I want to understand how an account record might touch opportunities, or you know, case records might be related to contacts or products or anything like that, I'm going into the back end, and that's all in the, it's like through the UI you can get those lists on an entity by entity basis of all the relationships, one way or the other, one to many, many to one, many to many, things like that. But there are third-party tools that make it a little bit more accessible, and maybe, you know, just a list of those types of things.
Cool. And I know in BC we've got like a report that we can create, right, Marcus? It's not anything
Yep.
fancy, but it does give you the information that's needed.
Yep.
Kind of the last area then too. So we've shown BC, we've shown CDS, which is field service, you know, CE, all that. Marcus, I know you've got a little bit of bandwidth issues, so Marcus may shrink and grow larger as his bandwidth catches up on the screen
That
here.
sounds like a superpower.
It is. He's like Ant-Man over here.
On command.
Yeah, exactly. There he is. So what we're going to do is let's do another data source on here as well, and let's do a finance and operations environment. So our finance and supply chain management CI demo. So I'm going to define another data source as well. And one of the features that a lot of people don't know about within finance and supply chain management is that you can actually access an OData feed. There's a bunch of entities that are already exposed within finance and supply chain management. And the easiest way to do this is generally to go to OData. And I'll show the string real quick here. You've got your instance ID that you specify. So this is my demo environment that I have. And then all you add is the / data as part of that. And then you're going to see basically that we've got a data repository that we can access. And I'm going to log in with my organizational account again for this one. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So I'll specify that, and then we'll go ahead and click next. And the nice thing about Dynamics, if we look at finance and operations, is that it's very similar to that of the common data service. The OData feed shows you all of the different entities that are exposed that you can access inside of there. Now, I personally prefer to do this. So you can do it this way, but the problem is that if you have multiple legal entities inside of finance and supply chain management, you've got to make sure that, number one, you add a certain parameter with it. So I'm going to do it against a specific entity. So you can get your list of entities, so that way you can find your customer or your sales invoice or whatever data entity that you want. But here's more commonly, or at least what I do with it. So you've got your data source again. It's a standard format with it. And this is a pro tip, because some people, what they'll do is they'll actually just put data and then check mark it, and then they'll see that there's no customers, for example, because it's looking at the DAT company or whatever the default company is, and there's no data in there, for example. But what you can do is you can add then data, the entity, so this is the customer's v3 entity, and then add this actual string, cross company equals true. So that way, when the OData query occurs within finance and supply chain management, what it's going to do is it's going to look across all companies to grab all the customers that are related to it. And you'll have a customer indicator that will be in there as well as part of that. So you do have kind of that option. And Marcus, I'm going to see if I can make you bigger, at least for a little bit here. There we go. Back on stream. Your quality. He's probably going to explode on the screen next is what'll happen. I'm going to go ahead and click on next to this then, and then hopefully if I've done this right, we should see customer information that shows up inside of Power Query for this information. So we'll wait for it in the background here. There it is. You can see as well that it did append some extra information. There it went. Marcus, I'm going to have to keep you small. Sorry. He is huge on screen right now. Move that around. What people don't know about broadcast is that there's a lot of stuff that happens in the background here, right? So, and we're using Skype to be able to have all of us together because I have not found a better tool yet to do multi-streamer broadcasting, which would be kind of cool. Thing to note though, so we added the cross-company capability. It'll add some additional OData information as well, the implementation version of this as well. And you can see now we have data from finance and supply chain management that we can also then add into here. So it'll actually go through that process just like we did with Business Central, just like we did with the Common Data Service, and now with finance and supply chain management, we can get that information as well. The ever-changing Marcus. Marcus, you are ever-changing. So we'll wait for this. What do you guys think so far? I mean, does this make sense? Marcus and Adam, I'm assuming, right?
I think, there are some nuances in some corners that you popped the hood on earlier this morning that I wasn't aware of, but I think the the resonating common denominator between, the data connectivity, getting and working with the data, some of the tools that are here, and actually starting to query and put these models together, the commonality for me was how accessible and how intuitive a lot of it is, even for those that aren't, accustomed to data science or working as DBAs or, really ingrained in this kind of work. That speaks to Microsoft's effort and their push to, they call it, democratizing makers, or the making capability. So building apps, building data models, building predictive data models, and getting right into customer insights and working with some of the raw data from your various data sources. It's not that tough, and they've got a lot of great documentation that can help you out. So that's what really struck me.
Yeah, it makes it a lot easier. I think the other aspect here, just to kind of just highlight then the next steps with it, and then we'll go take a little bit, we'll take a look at the demo environment just to, because I wanted to show at least how do you get the data. So now you know how to get that data. Now remember, to get this customer section to work as well, we've defined our data forces. We have to go through that mapping activity. And so an example here, like if we select the things that we're going to map into here, this is basically where you're going through and then you're defining the fields and what it's mapping into the customer insights information to be able to drive some of this information. So an example is when I'm looking at my Business Central customer list here, if I click on the select fields as an example, there's a bunch of fields that are going to be listed here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and highlight some of the ones that I know that we can set up really quickly as we go through this. So we don't need a statement information. Phone number will be nice to have. Don't need the statement information with it. We're going to need postcode. So let's just go ahead and take some of these out. And let's find postcode as the example as well. Add that. Click OK to it. You can see, actually one more field too. We need our primary key, which is our number field. There it is. Thank you for the follow, EP Maverick. Appreciate it. Click on done, and then what we'll do, for example, here is we'll map this to the ID field, or we'll map this to the, I think they call it postcode or zip code, postal code inside of here as well. And we're going to define this as the primary key. So you have to go through, and once you have those tables, define the mapping then. An example is, in Business Central, it's not really a county, even though we call it a county. It's actually the state, ironically. And then our address, for example, is actually our address street. The address is not the full address related to it. So you kind of got to know a little bit of what this structure is. When I go to my contact here as another example too, you would go through the same exercise. You would click on this particular entity, you would select your fields, and I want account name because that's my org name. I don't care about my address ID. You'd basically go through and then just check mark and enable which ones you want to be displayed with this. And the point of this is to make it so that what you can do then is take this information and then unify it. So I'm going to click on done to this just as the example. The account name is actually the organization name as the example here. And then I can say, for example, what the primary key is for it as well. I'm just going to say that is the primary key. And then our finance and supply chain management, same thing. And you can see it does fill out a lot of the information here for you automatically, but you may want to go through and validate that information, obviously, as part of that. And once you save that, then what you can do is you can go through the matching operation. So you map it to the fields that are going to be used inside of Customer Insights. Then you go through and then do the match capability. And the reason it failed there is because I'm just skimming through this very quickly as part of it. When you do the match operation, if we leave that page, this is where we then go through and then define how those are mapped after the mapping occurs. So what order are those occurring as well? And I don't know if the demo environment has this set up. Marcus, did you look at this by chance with the data?
No, I didn't. I walked through it when I set up my system, but I don't remember if the demo has it.
Okay, so it does have it, so which is good. So you can see map. This is where they map the data sources, right? The contact ID from Dynamics 365. They've got a point of sale data entity as well, and their loyalty ID is actually the primary key for that. And then the website users, they've got a user ID that's related to it. Then they set up their match, and in their match, they defined rules. So they said, hey, when I want to match against this contacts record that's up here, I want you to look at the field email address to match these together to identify those particular customers. And then down here on my website, I want to use the full name and the telephone as the example to do that. And this is where you can then specify like what is the precision level, right? So do you want, do you want to remove certain characters? Like, do you want to remove white space? Do you want to remove symbols? So, do you want to change text to lowercase so it doesn't matter on the text, especially to make it case insensitive as the example? And you can have multiple conditions that are in here as well. The point of this is to make a list of matched customers then that you can use. And what you would then do is you would go through the merge operation here to then say, hey, the first name in the contact table, the first name in the customers table, and the first name in the website users is really the first name that's going to be a customer field. So when you click on your customers then over here, you can see that detailed information that's related to it. So this is that joining of data, right, that we do to go through that. And that once you've gone through that exercise once, it's actually a pretty easy capability to set up. Marcus, did you go through the setup of that?
I did, and I think you're right. It's there's some terms in there that you might not know, but there's very good documentation around on how to do this, and it's very easy to do.
Yeah, I think the half the battle is just get the data in there, and then from there go through that unify operation with it. Now, a couple of tips I'd recommend for you just to understand with it. What it shows in your customers here is the matched records, and that was an interesting perspective with it because I had in my common data service source, I had 112 customers. Then I imported BC data and it found 2 matches, And when I went to my customers right here, only 2 customers showed up with it. So if you want to show all of those, remember there's some settings inside of here when you do the match operation that says include all records as the example here. Make sure you check mark that so that way those records are then shown or displayed inside of your customer list. Otherwise, it only wants to show the matched records inside of your customer list with it, which is, which the other aspect of this too, Marcus, I don't know if you knew this, when you add a data source, you can't remove it.
I did notice that because I was testing with some things and I had all this junk in there and I couldn't get rid of it. I thought maybe I just didn't know how to do it yet, but you can't, huh?
Nope, you can at this point. So I'm hoping in the future they're going to add the capability to remove the data source, but it's doing matching in the background that occurs with it.
The admin hasn't given you delete rights, and the admin is Microsoft.
Oh, the admin is Microsoft, and I go to the environments here and I just click on that wonderful little delete action right here. So that's what. But for your environment, you probably don't want to go through that every single time, right?
No, but I did mess up my first environment just for that reason. Yeah, I was just playing with it and I connected this stuff together and I couldn't finish the match because my data didn't work.
Yeah, get a trial, right? Play with a trial to start with this, I would recommend.
Yep.
So once you go through the unify operation, obviously, with it, when you go to your customers here, what it's going to ask you next is it's going to say you need to set up a search filter, search and index filter with it. And so what this is basically you're defining what fields you want to have available inside of this screen so you can search up at the top right up here. So you're going to generate that search and filter index then so that those fields are then exposed to it. And if you take a look at what they have, first name, last name, full name, zip, city, state, and email. If we go back to our customers over here, we can see those fields are being displayed on here as well for that. So that information is there. And once that's set up, then you're going to have your customer list, and we've got 426 customers inside of here. And when I drill down into that, this is where we can start seeing some additional information about those customers. So you're going to go through the setup, you're going to import that data, and then what you're also going to do then is set up different segments and measures then related to your customers that you have. So an example here would be if I click on my segments, they've gone through and specified purchases in 2019, customers with open cases, and then the average spending or the high churn rate that's related to it for these different segments. And the segments is actually very much like a filter. So if I go to, for example, customers with open cases, and we'll edit it just to show it, you can see it's saying, look at the cases entity from the Dynamics 365 data source, where the case status is in progress, and show all records with that and the customer insights. It's linking all those together as part of that. So you define then like a filter criteria to say, what is this segment? And the example I had in my demo environment is I used the postcode for it. So let's look, McCoy, Polly, Microsoft, are you sure you want to delete? Are you positive? Yeah, you have to put in that, you have to put in the name for it. Just restart it, it'll be fine. Yeah, exactly. Reboot the server.
One thing to note here, Scott, is not a ton of people that I've met with, either people looking to move to Dynamics 365 or those already using it, have been fully immersed in the marketing app, so the marketing first-party app from Microsoft. But they actually do have smart segments, and that is AI-driven. And the screen that you're just on in terms of the filtering and the structuring of that segment is the exact same as when you go into your marketing segments and start to structure those build some of those smart segments. Yeah, I mean, if not exactly the same, then I mean it's almost a ringer. So if anybody has been living in some of the AI capabilities and some of the the intelligence in the D365 marketing application, this should look pretty close to home.
Yeah, and that makes sense. I mean, the thing to note here is that when we went to the Unify operation, we were looking at customer master data, right? But when you click on the entities here, like if you take a look at it from the sources that are in the system, I mean, they pulled in the cases entity. So if you wanted to pull in your invoice information, you could pull that into here as well. You only go through that Unify capability to merge your customers or to define what that mapping is for your customers. But then after that, you can add as many different data sources for invoices, for AR, for cases, for Marcus, we were looking jobs right inside of Business Central. Projects would be an example within finance and supply chain management. So that way you can then create segments and then also create these measures. And the measures are, segments are putting or grouping your information together, right? So it's like taking Excel and then using the auto filter capability. Measures then are then taking and saying, okay, summing, averaging, giving me value off of something. And the example would be, here's an average online spend per customer. And if we take a look at that and edit it, you can see, look at the customer measure that's defined for it, average the customer measure, total online spend, as the average online spend per customer. So it creates an actual measurement or entity with it, and then we display it as our average spend per customer. So that way now you can, this is where we are talking about the business intelligence or the OLAP cubes. A measure is very similar to what we call an OLAP measure, where basically you're filtering down the records, and then you're pre-populating certain averages, sums, or whatever the actual function is inside of it, to make it so that way when you want to look at it from a customer or from a graph or from some visualization, for example, it knows exactly what it should be doing on that particular field. I mean, it's very similar to when we're working within Excel, and at the bottom of a pivot table, right, we'll go through and then add sums or counts or whatever it is to reflect the rows or the averages. It's very similar in concept to that, but we're just setting up inside of Customer Insights to really drive that. So, and then once you've set all that information up, you should be able to go through and then on your customers, for example, here, go through and define what that actual layout is going to be. So what activities are going to show up on here, what measures are going to be on here as well. And you can see we've got different activities like email information that's being shown here for a timeline as an area. And then we also have our different measurements that are being displayed inside of here as well. And this is then just using all that data that you have set up inside of your entities to really drive that. And then you're going to see in your entities, it creates measures. So here's all the measures it creates, right, that we are looking at with it. So this all happens then in the background as well. In your setup in system here, this is where you can define then the schedule in which it's actually going to run through those data sources and then refresh that information. So that way when you're looking at your customer insights, you're going to have the most current information, or based off of your schedule that you've defined inside of the customer insights area. Was there anything else, guys? I think there's an AI component inside of here as well, right?
There is. Yep.
That's the intelligence for custom models. So this is where we can hook up to Azure Machine Learning. So if you know about is it portal.azureml.com? Is that what it is? Oh, it's Studio, right? I always forget what they are because they've got Portal, you name it. I'll wait for that. Visual is now upgraded to Azure Machine Learning. Start your journey and build. Take me there.
I like that there's a take me there button.
I know, it's just like...
That's wonderful.
I'm now in a preview. I did not know about this. Uh-oh. Consulting. I'm supposed to not use that one.
This is actually a phishing website, just a really advanced one.
Exactly.
That lets you
it
off
really
in.
looks close, right?
They're getting really good at this, guys.
Azure, it's .net. Okay, I'm going to go back to the old one because that's the one I know. So this is where you can then create those web service models, right, for it. No, don't click on it. Yeah, you're going to get... Yeah, I can just see. I'm going to get emails from IT. Scott, you weren't supposed to click on that phishing email. We track
you
that
want
now,
Skynet?
right? It's
this
that
is how you
test.
get Skynet.
Yeah. So here's an example. Here's a forecasting model, and this is the forecasting model for demand planning. So you can set up then these experiments if you know how to do some Azure ML coding, R script, and things of that nature, and then you can consume that then inside of these custom models to give you information back so that that information becomes an entity so that you can then use that entity as part of that customer information that you can display then for that customer, for example. And churn score was one of them, right? So that was the one that was in here to be able to drive then some of that filtering, or those measures, excuse me, that we had that were inside of here as well. Kevin is on PTO. Thanks, Michelle. That's probably, I don't know. I'll get an email. Trust me, somehow he'll find a way. What else do you guys think? I mean, we've got 2 minutes left. I just wanted to show this. I think Marcus, you thought it would be kind of cool just to go through. Did we
Yep.
miss the only other thing is the enrichment, right? And that is where Microsoft has a bunch of information on customer data that you can basically link to in their repository to be able to get additional brand information from customers. So, my information when I go to Target, for example, with my credit card and I buy something, I'm assuming they might be keeping some of my swipe data, like the customer name, or maybe I've got a rewards card that I link it to. I think they have some of that information then that can be pulled into here. And if you look at your customers, if I remember correctly, if I look over here, I can see like the brands in terms of what I've been interacting with.
Yep.
Big data.
Yeah. One thing I did want to call out that I don't think we've really hit on directly is that if anybody's been hands-on in the Power Platform, so building Power Apps, you might have seen AI Builder. So this is different. Maybe that's an idea for a confab in the future, is jumping into Power Apps AI Builder. But some of the concepts and some of the depth of capability and modeling and things like that, there are some shared concepts here and there, but the AI Builder for Power Apps specifically is a little bit different. We're talking about things like document scraping or object recognition from images, these things that you have to not only define but then feed to coach in that machine learning sense. So AI Builder, different, go check it out. But this is really that customer insights hub for the advanced modeling, the advanced intelligence, and the data that you can work with.
Did you see this too? You can export the data, it looks like, to marketing lists. Dynamics 365 for sales. So you can have actions off of this as well.
That.
That's new. So that's preview. I do know that they did some updates this morning, so I'm assuming that might have been.
So the use case here, I mean, if you can imagine the practical application of this being, you're going to work with your data team or your business stakeholders to define exactly what those segments or that customer profile needs to look like. Maybe some of the KPI ranges that, hey, when they're falling into this sweet spot, we want to do something. We want to reach out. We want to, like in an omnichannel sense, be providing touch points or unique engagement on a one-to-one basis. You can take these models and the data that you're working with in customer insights and what you've defined here as an output to develop those those intelligent lists for you, then to go run email blasts or do a call down campaign or whatever you're going to do. So powerful stuff end to end when you think about the application of it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I know we're at time, guys. I appreciate everyone joining. It's been a little while. We're going to get back into the swing of things. So every 2 weeks, we're looking at doing another session. I think 2 weeks from now, Marcus, we're going to be doing Business Central, right? So
That's the plan.
What are we covering with Business Central? I'm going to put you on the spot.
Everything.
Everything?
We're gonna look at the whole thing in an hour.
Are we doing development too? Can I do some Can I write some code? I'll scare all of our dev team.
I think we should.
At least understand what's going on there, right? So, we said,
I'd like to show that, because I think a lot of people maybe are a little scared or concerned about what does that look like and can it be done, and it absolutely can be done.
Better eat my Wheaties. Yeah, I'm gonna need them. I'm definitely gonna need them. So chat, guys, I appreciate you joining. If you guys have any suggestions too in our channel, we do have a little suggestion box. We'd love to cover content that you guys want to hear about. Trying to break it down. Like I said, I'm on ERP on the enterprise side. Marcus is on the Business Central, which is the SMB or small medium business side, and then Adam is our CEE principal architect as well. So we've got a lot of knowledge here that we just want to share with you guys. So if you've got any suggestions, please feel free to put them there. We'll take a look at it and see how we can incorporate it into the stream. But thank you again, guys. Appreciate your time. I think that's it.
Later, guys.
All right. Thanks, guys. Now I got to find the ending.
This one's dedicated to all the little kids out there whose